Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about RFK Jr. getting his first step of approval towards becoming the Secretary of Health and Human Services in America. So it's a great day. RFK Jr. has been approved by the Senate Finance Committee and we are still awaiting his final approval. But I noticed that the Wall Street Journal posted about RFK Jr.'s confirmation, and I looked at the comments, and it's crazy. So look at them with me. So when we look here, Wall Street Journal posted RFK Jr.'s confirmation advances to full Senate vote. This is great news for the Republicans and the independents that voted for Trump to get Kennedy there to make America healthy again. So the post says that RFK Jr.'s, he advanced Tuesday after a key swing Republican voted for the nominee in the Senate Finance Committee. So Senator Bill Cassidy, who's a medical doctor, voted with all the committee's Republicans to support Kennedy's confirmation. So again, this is amazing news. But the comments, somebody says, "We so back," which is what a lot of Republicans have been saying. But he says, "easily preventable childhood diseases." And it's got 1,200 likes. Somebody else says, "so the blatant lies during his hearing with video proof weren't perjury in his case," with 842 likes. Somebody says, "an unserious country," 283 likes. Somebody just made some stupid comment about how his brain was eaten by worms. Somebody else says, "we are so cooked," 529 likes. So the feedback just here on Instagram is overwhelmingly negative towards RFK Jr.'s appointment. Somebody else says, "unbelievable, but when we woke up to find Trump was president, we knew it was all over." So I think the big question going around is RFK Jr. qualified to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services? Because a lot of people don't think he is, and that is the number one complaint. So we're looking at this picture, and this is a really funny picture. It is showing so this is Rachel Levine on the left, who was actually the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services under the Biden-Harris administration. And then now you have our new nominee, Bobby Kennedy, who does look way healthier. And it's interesting because nobody ever stopped to ask if this person, Rachel Levine, was qualified. But if you just look at these two individuals, you can see that Bobby Kennedy clearly looks healthier. I know looks aren't everything, but don't you want somebody to look strong and fit and healthy who's going to lead the nation into health? Rachel Levine is obese, okay? And there was an obese person. I feel bad because I'm not saying this to offend this person. I'm just kind of looking at it from an objective viewpoint. If there is an obese person who is running or contributing significantly to the Department of Health and Human Services, they're not a picture of health. You want somebody who is a picture of health. So that's the first thing. But I know people are going to want to go deeper into policy. Is Bobby Kennedy qualified? I think he's very qualified. Okay, Rachel Levine's qualifications, I think she was a medical doctor, and she does have a lot of education, in my opinion. Just saying, I don't think education is what qualifies somebody at all. I think life experiences and interest areas and the work that you've done speaks far more volumes than whether you got a degree in some program, because there are a lot of people that have degrees in fields that they don't even work in. They don't even use their degree towards their job. So that isn't what makes somebody qualified to me. But here's why I believe that Bobby Kennedy is a qualified person, probably the most qualified person in the world to lead the American Department of Health and Human Services. So for one, Bobby is a Kennedy. His uncle was President John F. Kennedy. His father was Senator Robert F. Kennedy. So RFK comes from a line of, he grew up around politics. He grew up around government. He watched his uncle, he watched his father, and his entire family being in politics. So he's been raised in that area. He's familiar with it. And just the fact that he is a Kennedy already gives him some credibility because he's known and he comes from a family that is generally well liked. But going into Bobby Kennedy as a person and his qualifications. Okay, so a big debate right now that's going on is Senator Elizabeth Warren was questioning Bobby Kennedy about the money that he collected after suing various pharmaceutical companies for the vaccines that they made. So this was a big deal. And she essentially said to him, "Can you promise that while you are serving your 4 years as Secretary of Health and Human Services, that you will not profit off of the vaccine companies or suing them or making policy changes?" And he said, "I'm not going to promise you that I'm not going to go after vaccine companies." So let's look at this. Bobby Kennedy is a successful attorney and environmentalist. He's a great attorney and he should be paid for his work. Unlike Elizabeth Warren, Bobby Kennedy worked to make that money. She's being paid, her pockets are being filled by protecting these industries that are corrupting and hurting the health of Americans. So I think it's good he made that money. All power to him. If you can do something you like, if you can make a positive impact in the world and you can make money for it, that's amazing. Now, is he going to profit while he's serving that position during those 4 years? That can be debatable. Is it ethical for him to do that? I think the code of ethics prohibits that anyways. But putting profit aside, what Elizabeth Warren was essentially trying to do is she was trying to basically come to an agreement, get him to say under oath that he would not come after the vaccine makers and the pharmaceutical companies. And he said he can't promise that. So Bobby Kennedy's first qualification, he is an environmentalist. He's the one who cleaned up the Hudson River. And he's always been very concerned about the oceans and the environment. So health in that way. And I think that is an amazing start. Something else that makes him qualified is that he has sued a lot of mega corporations that have taken advantage of their employees, their animals that are involved, if it's an agricultural or a farming business, and also the consumers who become sick from a lot of the practices. He knows how they operate. He knows how to operate with them in a court of law. He knows how to combat them. He knows how to fight them. This is a good thing. I don't think anyone should argue that the major food corporations like the food conglomerates, the meatpacking industries, the processed food companies, and the pharmaceutical companies, who are all interwoven and connected, I don't think anyone's going to argue that they need to be held accountable. They need to be required to make safe products, and we as a country need to hold them accountable for how they have poisoned our food supply and sickened us. And Bobby Kennedy knows how to do that because he's done it before. Okay, second thing. A lot of people are also coming after Bobby Kennedy because they say he is anti-vax. Now, I know a lot about this because when RFK Jr. was running for president as an independent candidate, I was going to vote for him. So I looked into a lot of what he was saying and his stance on important subjects like vaccines and abortion. And when he talked about vaccines, if you actually listen to him, you will see he is not anti-vax. What he's saying is that vaccine companies need to make safer vaccines. He wants to get the lead and the mercury and the heavy metals out of the vaccines. He's not saying we don't need vaccines. He's actually saying let's make them safer. But people just want to throw around anti-vax, anti-vax, anti-vax because if you have that label attached to you, it paints a pretty negative picture of yourself in the press. What I also like about Mr. Kennedy is vaccines weren't an issue for him until at his environmental rallies, a group of moms kept showing up and showing up and showing up with research about how their children had become poisoned and sickened by vaccines. And they wanted to show him this research so he would look into it. But he didn't know anything about it before then. So even the fact that he's willing to listen to the people and hear people and question and think for himself and learn is another reason why I thought he would have been a great presidential candidate, because he was willing to learn. He wasn't stuck in his ways. He was curious and willing to learn, and that's a great quality. And because of that, after doing research, he did find that there is a connection between mercury being in the vaccines and some of the additives and chemicals in the vaccines that are contributing to autism in children and other illnesses. Overall, he's not trying to take away vaccines, and I think the idea of all vaccines getting banned is very unlikely. I think he wants to make them safer. He was anti-COVID vaccine because it was not FDA approved. It was rushed, and even today we are seeing the side effects of that terrible vaccine that was pushed. I actually think that his stance is good because whether you are completely anti-vax or not, I think the average person is probably not going to be anti-vax. So you as a person should still have the freedom to choose whether or not you want to vaccinate yourself or your children. But the average American who does choose to vaccinate, they should at least be given safe vaccines that are not going to be loaded with heavy metals and poisoning that is going to increase autism and other illnesses. So again, to anybody listening to RFK Jr., just listen to what he says. Don't read CNN. Listen to him say his entire stance that he wants to make vaccines safer and cleaner and get the heavy metals out of them because they are causing problems. So I think Bobby Kennedy is qualified because he does have a background in health and environmental health. He has an open mind and is willing to learn. And he says a lot of things that I agree with, like seed oils are bad, and let's focus on animal foods and animal fats, and let's get this corrupt and biased scientific research out of our government and bring the truth here. Okay, let's end the FDA's war on public health, which is very real. If you are a raw milk consumer, you know what I'm talking about. Raw milk companies and businesses and anything homeopathic cannot legally claim that their product can heal illnesses, even if science proves that it can, because the pharmaceutical companies do not want anybody to sell anything that's healing that isn't a drug. And he wants to end that because there are many different ways of alternative health and healing that people can use to improve their health and improve their lives that don't include drugs. There may be a time and a place for drugs and prescriptions sometimes. The modern medical industry does serve a place, but we need to look at holistic lifestyle, holistic products, and natural products that God gave us first, and then craft our healthcare system around that. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on RFK Jr.'s appointment. Let's continue to pray for him. Let's continue to pray that he gets this position and that he uses it for good, that the Spirit of God is in him, and that we as a country can become healthier again. I think a lot of people are commenting things like that under the post because they've only read the CNN headlines that talk very badly about him. But I bet you a lot of these people have not done their research on who he is and what his real stance is on these topics. Thank you, Bobby Kennedy, for your service. And I look forward to seeing you in DC officially.